and welcome back to another video. Obviously a bit of a different venue than I usually am doing these at. Sitting here in my home office. It's Wednesday night. Normally I would be at the Wash on Wednesdays, or midweek, but I don't have to go over quite as much because I hired somebody. Actually got busy enough to where figured out I needed some help locally. So this is going to be a long video, but I figure I'll give a few updates here, just kind of about where things are at, what's going on with the Wash. Trying to remember back to what I have already talked about before. So 4 or 5 bays are open. Everything that can be open is open right now. The 5th bay, which is the tall bay that requires some additional work, namely some masonry. I've got to replace some FRP walls and repair some brick. That bay is not open yet. It's going to be a couple months. I'm kind of at the end of my spares, so that bay is going to be getting a different boom for the low pressure than the other bays, because I lost one of the low pressure booms that came with the Wash to a split that had happened where it froze up at some point. It's actually the one I believe I tried to put in bay 1 first and it sprayed everywhere. It's been a while back. So I have one of the Clean-Rite value booms. I'm going to try those out and see how I like it. It's not going to match everything else. It's certainly a lot lighter weight. So if it's going to cut the mustard in that bay, it's going to cut the mustard. If not, it's going to, we'll figure out how good they are. Eventually, I'd like to replace all of the booms with some nicer, some Mosmatics or something like that, but they're expensive, and I'm letting it pay for itself at this point. Let's see here. Got all the bays going. Had a bit of a situation that occurred with bay 3 when I brought it online. I got pictures I'll post in here. I'll try and interject them somewhere in the video here. I got it going, and it was I think it was a Sunday, and I stayed for the Monday. I worked my day job from our beach house there, because I've learned the cardinal rule that we do, like in IT. You don't make a big change and then go home. Well, thank God I did, because I got a call from a guy, and he was like, yeah, I was using the bay, and all of a sudden it just stopped spraying. Never a good sign. Usually that means you've had a hose blow off somewhere, something catastrophically fail. You've had a pump catastrophically fail. You snapped a belt. You burned a motor up. You blew a breaker. It's not just like, oh, it just stopped working. So I hop on to my camera to look at the camera in the pump room, and I can't see anything because it's full of smoke. I'm like, well, it's either on fire or something's on. So I rapidly screech over there from the beach house. It takes 4 minutes to get there. I open the door, and there was no fire at the time, but the belt for pump 3 had blown off. I actually caught it on video, popping off. And when it popped off, it got hung up in the pulley, and it just smoked it, because the motor just keeps on running. Oh man, that's a pump I just rebuilt, and I rebuilt that one from scratch. I put new bores in it. It was clean, but I redid the plungers, new bores, all new seals, pumps, everything else. It was tight. I spun it by hand some. I made sure it was well lubricated. I let the motor run, and I let it run for a few minutes with water, but just running water through kind of to break it in after I rebuilt it. And it was still kind of tight. I'm like, oh, I hope it doesn't have it. And it the other thing is, when I drained the oil on it, and they're just like a car, it was a bit milky. So I'm like, well, there's moisture in the crankcase. I can't tell if I got a blown gasket, a head gasket essentially, or something else, or just water, from it being in a wet environment. So I'm like, I'm just going to run it and see. If it blows, it blows. Run it till it blows. Well, I started looking and I realized that when I put the new regulator on it, I forgot to open the bypass regulator up. So what was happening is when you would let go of the trigger, the pump would essentially make the maximum pressure that it possibly could before it would just stall out and just it would sound like a bell squealing, and until it bled off when you squeeze the trigger again, so you get 2 or 3 seconds of this. So it was my fault. I cooked it, but it was a good test because I know at one point I saw on video there that gauge registers to like 3,000 psi, and it was getting way up there. I didn't blow a line anywhere, so I'm like, okay, good. The lines are all in good shape, or I've just severely shortened the life of everything, which if it is, I figured out. Lines blowing off has been a big issue I had to deal with. And I think I showed in the other video where you can do the hydraulic connector, and I bought enough to do everything, to replace every barbed fitting in a high pressure area, and that's actually going to be kind of my weekend project this upcoming weekend. Excuse me. Presuming I'm able to do so. We had our first snow in Delaware since I've owned this car wash. Actually, the biggest snow they've had there in quite a few years. And I did insane business. I actually, I broke even for the month in a week. And I never would have thought at this point in time I would have done that. At one point I had traffic backed out the parking lot down the road, causing a minor traffic jam. And there was this weird anxiety of like, oh God, I hope something doesn't break. Everything kept up. It was great. What I did learn was that, and this is before I had all 4 bays open, part of what delayed me getting bay 3 open was I learned that my white water pressure, the float tank, was not sufficient enough when all those bays are running, when 3 of them are running wide open. If everything is working as it should, it can get the tank down to where I was hitting the secondary water source that I had plumbed into it. So I've got that primary on the top for the hot, and the secondary about a foot off the bottom of the tank, where if the water got down that low, it would phase on. That would feed everything, and it was enough. You'd lose your hot water. The water would cool down, but you would lose, you'd keep things going. I didn't want to keep doing that. So like, I've been looking at tanks, and they're expensive. I don't want to spend the money because it'd be cheap, and look at you. And I was at Home Depot, and I decided I got a 44-gallon Brute trash can with a lid and redid everything, and it has been phenomenal so far. And surprisingly, for being a relatively thin plastic, and I'm feeding water into it at 110 degrees, it's not insulated, but it's actually doing really well, better than the barrel was, and having the lid really helps too. It also helps keep the humidity in the pump room down, so it's not like steaming or sitting there like I'm in a sauna or a steam room. Yeah, so those are kind of the big things. Got that going. Bay 3's been doing fairly well. I've had little issues here and there, operational stuff. Somebody put some loonies in one of the coin exchangers, and it tried to kick out and reject it, but it couldn't because there were so many quarters stacked up behind it that it jammed up, because I don't have funnels in the coin boxes to send the money when you drop it into the coin exchanger, into the coin acceptor. It falls out the bottom. It's supposed to go down a tube. The tube falls into the wall, falls into the vault. Well, sometimes they hang up and they sit. So I gotta work. I've got a buddy who does 3D printing. I'm gonna hit him up and see if, because I don't have a 3D printer yet. I want one, but limited justification, although this is giving me ideas. And then I have to learn the skills to use the damn thing. I digress. I need to get some funnels, some trays made to funnel the money into those tubes. They have commercial available ones. I have 3 or 4 of them that were left by the owner of the wash before me, and they don't fit. And I tried cutting one down. I'm like, I don't want to hack this together, especially in today when we can do rapid prototyping and things like that. I just need to get some pictures and figure out what. And then hit my buddy up. So I got through all that. Let's see here. And then sorry, I'm just checking the remote control because I'm using my gimbal. I'm working on learning this. Other exciting news, like I alluded to at the beginning, about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I was there, and it was about a month ago. It was one of the busy days that we had, and it was cold. I was doing some work prepping Base 3, and there was a young man and his father. They were in washing his car, and he stopped me. The young man did and said, "Hey, if you ever need any help around here, let me know. Do you need any help?" And I said, "Hey, let me get you my cards." I got my card for my company as well as my card for the car wash. They said, "Shoot me an email, and give me your information. When I do need help, I'll reach out." So 4 minutes later, he shot me his contact info. I mean, that he was on it. So that tells me he's serious. Great. It seemed like a nice guy, seemed very trustworthy, you get a good feeling. I have a good gut feel for people I've hired in my primary job. I've hired over 1,000 people, fired not nearly that many. Worst thing you can do is fire somebody, but, so I got a good gut read. It got really busy, really fast. And now it's been slow the past week and a half, really slow. Weather and everything else, but it's easy to see what the potential is, and I think is going to happen this summer, knock on wood. So I emailed back and forth with him, and he came over last week for an interview. I call it an interview. It was basically a walk around, "Hey, do you want to work here?" kind of thing. Before he left, I gave him a key. I mean, it was like, we were already there. He's been over a couple of times. The bays have not looked better since I've taken this place over after it started getting busy. That's one of the things that actually needs quite a bit of care and feeding. People just leave such a mess. I got a phone call the other day. Someone said there were a bunch of nails in one of the bays. He was actually driving a tire service truck for like commercial tires, like semis. He was like, is someone trying to sabotage you? I'm like, no, it's construction workers coming in, sweeping out their truck beds. I get it. Clean up after yourself. Come on now. People have to use these facilities after you, and yeah, I'm not expecting people to hose the things down. But if you get nails everywhere, come on, clean your truck bed out before you come in. Just like the people who leave horse shit in the bays. You're going to leave a bunch. Knock it off before you leave. I digress. I'm making money, so if I got to clean this stuff up, I got to clean this stuff up. But it sucks because I don't want to impact other customers. So when I was showing this gentleman who's working for me now around, while we're walking and talking, he's picking stuff up. I'm like, man, this guy is on it. Like, even if I don't think it was performative. I think it was just, hey, there's something on the ground, let's pick it up, Regardless, I don't care, because it shows somebody's invested. So, yeah, that's been great. This week, I haven't had to go back midweek at all. I haven't felt the need to. We had snow yesterday. Into this morning. He came yesterday and salted the bays. Did what we needed to in the parking lot. This morning, when I checked the cameras when I got up first thing like I always do, you could see where the salt had actually gone out into the parking lot, because the parking lot in the front and in the back were completely covered except for the areas where it went over. The bays look great. So I'm thrilled. And, I made a checklist of things like, check the coin exchangers, check the vacuums, check this, check that. I think it's a good thing. I think, for me, I want to do this all on my own. And part of learning to do it on my own is to accept help, because if I'm going to move on to the next stage of this company, and that is, start looking at another wash, or start looking at a laundromat, or another type of place like that, I'm going to need some help. And, I look at like Car Wash Chronicles on YouTube. He's got a guy who helps him who with a lot of things, his washes. So it's a good thing. It doesn't, for me, it also takes the stress away because I'm 2.5 hours away from Coastal Auto Spa in my house here in Maryland. So the 10 o'clock, oh my God, something blew up, I have to drive over there rapidly. I've got Hank, who's laying on the floor here chewing a bone, but Hank loaded in the car, and then I hit the deer going over there in the middle of the night because, I had a hose blow off. And, you say, well, hose blows off. Well, yeah, but when I've got nobody there that I can call and say, hey, can you put a do not, an out of order sign on this? Or, when a hose blows off because everything is gravity fed, it's not the magnitude of, oh my God, I've got city water spraying everywhere. But what I do have is gravity feed water coming out of a tank, shooting up in a 1-foot fountain on the wall, running right down the wall, down the drain. Okay, but that's hot water. So now aside from the waste of water, I've got the water heater is going to be cycling on and off, on and off, on and off because it's tankless, constantly trying to refill everything. So you've got the cost, the wear and tear. So there's a lot more to it. So just knowing that I've got somebody who I can call, and I have support from the guys who own the Jiffy Lube and the guys who work there and manage it, and they've been amazing to help me when I've needed something, but I feel bad. It's my venture, it's my business. You don't work for me. There's not that obligation there. I feel like I'm putting you out or adding more to what you should be doing for day to day. So, you don't want to take advantage of people. So it's like, look, now I've got something if I need to. And also, if he can't make it over there because he's got some obligation or whatever, and he's got two other jobs, I can go over there, but at least I have a first call. That's huge. Trying to go through in my head here things. I think the biggest news aside from all that, I got a call from my lender I got an email from my lender the other day, asking, a few months ago I was asked if I would be interested in being featured and having an article in a newsletter that they do internally. Could I send some pictures? Which I did. Never heard anything about it. I knew it was coming up later on, and I got a message the other day from my loan officer, and she said, hey, we'd like to interview you for this story. Here's an example of the newsletter. And the newsletter that they feature this other person in, it's the whole newsletter. It's not like, it's an article. It was like literally a 2 or 3 page online newsletter. Or not online, it's printed, but there's an online one. Oh my God, okay. So, I jumped on. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. And actually the lady who interviewed me was later on yesterday. She called me. I called my mom, told her the good news, and one of the things is I need her to look up some vintage photos of me, because we talked kind of about how did I get to this point. And for those of you who don't know, it was always as a child, I was one of the biggest fights I had with my father, who the man could win an argument with anyone except for me when I'm like 5, was because I asked if I could dig a pond in the backyard, and they thought I was going to dig a hole. I dug a pond in the backyard, and I lined it with a shower curtain, and I had flat rocks all around it so you couldn't see that there was a shower curtain, and I had a flashlight under the water, so there was lighting, and I had a aquarium pump that I had scavenged probably from like the trash riding my bike and saw it there. Trash picking child, but my bike, which was a 1957 Schwinn Racer with a trailer attached to it, but the trailer was actually a folding like luggage cart that I also scavenged. Somebody had thrown out, or I'd gotten at a yard sale or something with a crate on it. popular kid, let me tell you. But at any rate, um, my dad was like, "What are you doing?" Mind you, I'm 5, like, but it's grounded. Like, I was, I understood these basic concepts. I couldn't write my own name. I couldn't add 2 plus 2, but I understood these basic concepts. I understood things like that. On top of this, I collected vacuum cleaners. I had 49 at one point. I had a great uncle who owned a vacuum cleaner repair shop that I could get parts from, or I would just go there and hang out among the machines. I got them as gifts. I scavenged them from the side of the road. My grandfather from the flea market, my grandmother. I mean, it was, but 49. So yeah, there were a lot of, things. I was very mechanically inclined, hyper mechanically inclined as a child. So I asked my mom to find some photos of these things, if she can, of me growing up, like with my vacuum cleaners. Or there's one from my 4th or 5th birthday where I'm sitting with a stuffed Alf, stuffed animal, and a whole bunch of pipes, because my grandfather got me a Flambeau. It's a gray toolbox. It's still at home, my mom's, in the barn. Now it's obviously full of tools, but it was full of all kinds of half-inch plumbing parts. And I used to hook up massive plumbing creations that I would put into the drain on the side of a Coleman cooler, which was a 1/2 inch. I'd fill it with water, and I had my water tank, and I'd have sinks, and I'd play with everything. So, always, somehow, this is the road that I found here. So it's going to be in April. They're writing the article, and they've wanted some photos. I got to get some photos together. It's goofy. It's media exposure. Yes, it's my lender's newsletter that's on their Facebook page and website. They have like 1,400 followers. So, I mean, it's something. I'm excited. It's, because I'm excited and a bit humble about this. And I'm proud. It's been a lot of hard work, but I feel like there's getting some recognition, and I don't know, it's enjoyable. So it's kind of where we're at right now. I haven't done any major car wash content in, obviously, this update here. Getting back into it. I plan on doing a better job of documenting Bay 5 when I do it. I'm just going to start to finish, because there's FRP work, which I've never done, dealing with the panels. It's fiberglass reinforced plastic. Men have probably seen it in public bathrooms around urinals. It's a pebbled material on walls. Women's rooms, I presume, have it on the walls. I don't really know what y'all have in there. But there's going to be some work with that. There's going to be some straight up plumbing. The other thing I'm looking at, kind of the next steps. Air dryers are on the roadmap. People have asked, people have seen. Spot free kind of goes hand in hand with that. It's a big investment for reverse osmosis. I'm looking into what other options I may have. My water is actually not that hard there, and I'm debating on trying to put in a water softener first and seeing if that brings my TDS down to a level to where I don't really need spot free. Pipe dream, we shall see. And then the other big thing that I'm looking at doing, by customer request, actually, I've had 2 or 3 people ask me about it, and I think because of the way I've plumbed some things together, I can do it, is underbody lances, underbody wands. So a separate gun plumbed in that, it's shaped for cleaning your undercarriage. Double-edged sword, because I already had to water jet out a drain the other day, because I had a pit that was stopped up with sand. Well, the catch box overflowed, and it plugged the drain up. So, if we got more undercarriage washing, you're going to have more of that stuff. But if it's something the customers want, it behooves me to move on that. I think I think I can do it relatively inexpensive. The equipment for each bay is a couple $100 for the gun, the nozzles, the hoses. But when I plumbed in the Weep system a couple months ago, I bought a 3-port manifold for each bay. So you've got the high pressure coming in the bottom. You've got 3 ports, one of which currently is used for the Weep. The other 2 are plugged up. The top comes out, goes to the bay. Those came in very handy when I had to shut down about a month ago when I had to purge the lines, because all I had to do was undo one plug, stick my air hose in there, spray it, and I could blow all the water out of the lines. Beautiful. But the intent for this was the second port in the manifold is where the reverse osmosis water is going to go into for spot free. It'll be delivered by a different pump that's lower pressure. And then there was always a third that I said for future expansion. Well, future expansion, it's a 3/8, which is what size line I use, 3/8 inch hose, or 3/8 inch for the barb. I may actually use that to have the water come out and go back to the bays for the lance for the high pressure. What that would mean is when a person turns to soap, they would have 2 different ones spraying at once. One's going to be spraying down a drain, one will be doing whatever. Regardless, I got to figure out a better way to do this, but I think I can do it without having to play a whole bunch of screw around a whole bunch with wiring and options that I don't really have, because my 10 position switches, really everything's accounted for in there by the time you count the spot free, the desalt, and the air dry. Desalt, really popular right now, more so than I anticipated. People seem to like that, and it does work. I used it on Filbert the other day, and it just literally, you could actually see the salt like run off. There was dirt, but there was like a layer. It was weird. That being said, kind of wanted to give everyone an update because I know it's slowed down for the video production. It will pick up. I'm in operation stage now. Things are running. It's making little bits of money here and there, but it's showing promise, and it's not consuming me at this point, which is really, really good. Because for a while there, it was, I have friends who are like, we're worried about how much you're driving and how little you're sleeping. I'm like, you're worried about it. I'm worried about it, but I gotta get this done. Not really. But, well, yeah, there were a couple times where it was like, oh, how I can't sustain this. But I pulled through. That said, I'll catch everybody on the next video. I'm going to try and get this edited and uploaded today or tomorrow. Today being Wednesday, I think it's the 12th of February, 2025. Thank you for watching.